We have a quorum. Let's call the meeting to order. We just have a quorum, actually. Maybe we can wait a little longer because it's not time yet. We're 3 minutes early. Members, it's now time, and we have a quorum, so let's call the meeting to order. There are 3 papers for discussion by members. Before the meeting, the administration provided ECI 2013-14-10 for members' information. This paper lists out the changes in the directorate establishment since 2002 and the impact of the proposed changes of the 3 papers to the directorate establishment. If I may remind members, if there are any direct or indirect pecuniary interests involving the items under discussion today, in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, members have to disclose the nature of the interest before speaking on the relevant item. And for members with direct pecuniary interest, please also note Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedure on the provisions that are relevant. And first item is propose to create a permanent post to strengthen directorate support to cope with the increasing workload, thereby enhancing its work and ensuring food safety and other related policies and measures, as well as pursuing amendments to and implementation of relevant legislation to safeguard public health. This is supposed to be created in the Food branch of the Food and Health Bureau. It's a administrative officer staff grade B post, D3 post. The panel on food and environmental hygiene was consulted on the 12th of November 2013. The panel supported the proposal. Attending the meeting to answer members' questions, we have Ms. Marian Lai, Permanent Secretary for Food and Health, Mr. Philip Chen, Deputy Secretary for Food and Health, Food Special Duties, Dr. Helena Wong, the chairperson of the panel on food safety and environmental hygiene, is a member of this subcommittee, and she is unable to attend today's meeting. So, based on the information provided by the Secretariat, I will briefly report the main deliberations of the panel. Some members considered that the proposed creation post will cause the establishment in the food branch to be bloated. They propose that the current supernumerary post be extended by another 6 months, and before the expiry of the post, and there could be review as to whether there is need to turn the supernumerary post into a permanent one. Some members also expressed concern whether other new posts need to be created to support the work of this newly created staff grade AO staff grade B post. The administration's explanation is that the food branch takes care of an extensive scope of issues in relation to food safety and environmental hygiene. The nature and complexity of food safety regulation keeps evolving, so it's important that there is permanent AO staff grade B post at D3 to provide dedicated support, and the administration does not see a need to increase manpower to support this post. Mr. Tan Ka-pil, Mr. Felix Chung, and Ms. Emily Leung have indicated they wish to speak 3 minutes each. Mr. Tan Ka-pil, and also Dr. Kwok Ka-ki. Does any other member wish to speak? Ms. Emily Leung? Okay, yes, your name's on the list. 3 minutes each. First, Mr. Tan Ka-pil. On food safety and food-related issues, of course, we'll support the proposal. Over the years, there were incidents involving malachite green, food imported from mainland, or even food from Taiwan. There were cases of unsafe food products or products not in line with requirements. Now, there have been so many food incidents. How come you're only proposing the creation of the post now? Has it really to do with the restriction of formula milk export? Is that really the issue that's caused you to decide to come to LegCo now? Because some LegCo members are saying that there seems to be more and more directorate posts. Some are supernumerary in nature, others extended 3 years and another 3 years and so on. So why do you want to come to us now? And thank you. In 2008 to 9, we actually in August 2009, we've already created a supernumerary post at D3 in the food branch. At that time, the post holder was to deal with the drafting and implementation of food safety bill. But for the post holder, he didn't just take care of the food safety bill. He also helped with many other pieces of subsidiary legislation in relation to, say, food additives and so on. And then in August 2013, the post expired, and then because there was a short supply of infant formula, so we had to impose restriction on the infant formula supply chain, and so the post was extended for another 6 months. But then for the supply chain of infant formula, we see that it's not going to be a short-term problem. You know, food supply chain is evolving, and its complexity is increasing, so we need a dedicated post to take care of such matters. Now, in 2011, there was radiation leakage in Japan, and then there was the plasticide case in Taiwan, and then short supply of Japanese infant formula and so on. All these incidents show that the scope of issues in relation to food safety is extending. Now, for Hong Kong, over 90% of our food is imported, so Hong Kong is rather passive in the sense that we do not have a high-level support. Maybe we cannot deal with the issue. But was the infant formula a key reason why you decided to make this a permanent post? Well, that's one reason, but then other issues also relevant. Mr. Felix Chung, in this discussion paper, you see a lot of issues need to be tackled. The Permanent Secretary mentioned infant formula here. There's also mention of development of the agriculture, avian flu, import regulations of eggs. So many issues. So is it true that you just need an extra post to deal with it, or do you actually need an extra team? And this person has to have expertise in so many different fields. Would it be through internal promotion, or are you going to hire from the outside? Permanent Secretary, avian flu is actually under the portfolio of Deputy Secretary 1, another post holder. And we are proposing to turn the D3 post a permanent post exactly because we want to have better division of work, and then the two Subcommittee Secretary will have better synergy. DS1 will take care of animal health and management. You know, a lot of the infectious diseases or communicable diseases caused by interactions between humans and animals. So that's why that's an important area of work, and that would be the first priority task for DS1. And then there are other issues in relation to food safety and supply. Mr. Felix Chung asked whether there is a team required, not just in a person. Well, we try to exercise self-restraint. As we create the D3 post, we'll just make use of existing support for the existing D2 support, because what we want is that we have a streamlined structure with optimal effect or optimal benefits. Are you going to have internal promotion, or you're going to hire from the outside? Well, it's the usual practice of deployment of staff by the Civil Service Bureau. So we have a pool of talents, and they will deploy from there. Thank you. Ms. Emily Lau, I fully support the creation of this post. There's many people have been telling me they're really concerned about the numerous food incidents. They ask whether the administration is monitoring the situation carefully, and they say the government takes too long to do tests and so on. People are really rattled. And of course, a lot of the food comes from the mainland. A lot of food is fake or contaminated. There's food from Taiwan is problematic too. Food from Japan is also a problem. Every time I meet with the Japanese Consulate General, I express our concern to him, saying that we're really worried that your contaminated water is leaked into the ocean. It's causing so much contamination. So with the creation of this post, how can you assure the public that there'll be quicker tests done? Because the public want to know whether there's problem with a particular food product, and then you could announce it at the first instance so people won't have it. What about food from Taiwan and Japan? Well, Hong Kong people love hot Japanese food, but then as we consume Japanese food, we are worried at the same time. So how do you assure the public? Eggs, aquatic products. There's no regulation whatsoever. Over the years, Madam Chair, you know, there are fake eggs on the mainland. I don't know why they bother to make fake eggs, but anyway, what do we do? As Mr. Felix Chung asked, is it true that one person could take care of all that? Because the public are really worried. Permanent Secretary? Well, it's exactly because of the public concern. That's why we are more determined to do a proper job here. To do a proper job, we need a suitable staff structure. Ms. Emily Lau expressed concern about Japanese food. We are equally concerned. That's why since the 2011 radiation leak in Fukushima, every year we, instead of the 5,000 usual 5,000 samples that we do random tests, now we do another 50,000 samples every year. Now, the government laboratory is, of course, responsible for testing of food items. On food safety testing, we are actually enhancing our work here. We want to identify suitable sites. We have food laboratories scattered in different parts of Hong Kong. We want to group them all under one roof, so there would be a better synergy. And we would also like to extend the scope of testing. Actually, the government laboratory enjoys a good reputation around the world. In other countries, if they want to seek expertise, advice, or testing, they might come to seek views from our government laboratory. So I can say that with the creation of this post, there will be better supervision of the work of the government laboratory. Madam Chair, she didn't answer my question about the mainland and Taiwan. Most of the food comes from mainland, and people are really concerned because there are often media reports that something's wrong with the food from the mainland. Eggs. We have so much so many eggs, and now we find that all these years there's such a risk. And aquatic products, Hong Kong people love seafood. How come there's no regulation? Well, I'm sure even if we create this post, we can't expect the post holder to do magic. Now we have close liaison with the relevant Chinese authorities on quality inspection and so on, and we need to that is the General Administration of Quality Supervision, Inspection and Quarantine, AQSIQ. Now, like Mr. Philip Chen, he went to Beijing, Guangzhou and so on at least 10 times in the last year. So we need to keep up close liaison with the AQSIQ, and that means a lot of time has to be spent there. And on regulation of pesticide residues in food, again, the DS will have to take care of it. Eggs, the risk of avian flu involving eggs. The OIS has and the WHO have said that we cannot rule out the risk of avian flu. That's why we are drafting a piece of legislation to regulate avian eggs. As for aquatic products, we have plans to impose regulation, but we need the coordination with mainland. For example, the mainland, there may have to be dedicated farms to supply to Hong Kong, like for chickens and so on. So they have to have proper standards for these farms before we could have dedicated supply from the mainland to Hong Kong. And on these issues, we are closely liaising with the mainland authorities.
I understand that there are standards in mainland as well as in China. It's a problem of execution. At the district level, some matters might not be viable. Even if we dispose, we cannot expect this person to do everything. I think you have to consider whether you have a team of people to handle this issue, because this is a very important issue for the public. Dr. Kwokaki, I really value food safety. Now we have an extra deputy secretary post, but it doesn't mean that the problem of food safety can be solved. If we don't have enough people at the food safety center, the problem would still persist. Some of the duty mentioned don't belong to this deputy secretary, but I don't know why they were raised here. For example, the issue of powdered formula. Well, we talked about the issue of importers yesterday, importers of powdered formula. Only a small portion of powdered formula is consumed locally, and most of them are being traded by parallel traders. What can we do to tackle this problem? Some suppliers invented the concept of a mother's club. Well, it actually means the powdered formula sold. It's actually more expensive than the market price. But you have not told us what exactly you would do to tackle the problem. Right now, within the same bureau, the government is having a war within themselves. For example, the administration is taking away rural land in the new territories and blindly turning them into different developments. And the issue of local agricultural products is not included in your paper. Have you ever considered regulating local agricultural products? If you are giving a hand, this would greatly benefit the local economy. Part of your job should be to consider the use of local ingredients. For the Center of Food Safety, I agree with your view. Apart from this position at FHB, we have a team of staff to support at the Center of Food Safety. We have a versatile team. We have veterinary staff, doctors, HI or health inspectors. And under this versatile team, our staff have a range of talents, and they work very hard for the public to safeguard food safety. And we would make sure the establishment is appropriate, and we would only we only suggest to introduce extra staff if we see a need. On the supply of milk powder for the mothers' clubs, you asked what the administration has done to safeguard food safety. Earlier, the Import and Export Ordinance regulated the export of powdered formula, and each person can only bring a specific amount of powdered formula out of Hong Kong to make sure local mothers have a steady supply of powdered formula. However, we cannot rule out the fact that some people would unlawfully export powdered formula out of Hong Kong. We are talking 90% of the people here. Yes, we understand. We have to balance personal needs of feeding babies with overall interests. Right now, I think we have struck a balance with the current ordinance. We would continue to monitor suppliers to ensure a steady supply under the current supply chain. We would step up promotion efforts and encourage parents to use their vouchers in return for milk powder. Apart from the supply chain, apart from a complete supply chain, we urge consumers to cooperate, and they should plan ahead in terms of the feeding schedule for their babies. And they should make purchases well ahead of time. We would continue our work on these fronts, and we will continue to ensure a steady supply of milk powder. Third point, on local agricultural development, this is an issue we are very concerned about as well. On agricultural development, we hope to provide technical advice to our farmers and trade professionals, and we hope they will comply with the guidelines for agricultural practices, for example, the use of fertilizers, etc. We hope also to develop a high value-added development mode to ensure that our agricultural products reach a certain quality. We understand land is very precious in Hong Kong, and this is a problem of supply. And that means we have to make good use of our existing land. And some friends within the trade want to be involved in farming too, and we would help them find appropriate land. I have a question too for the Secretary. I have two questions. Earlier, I was told by the public that some food oil have toxic substances in Taiwan, and the public said we have the same situation in Hong Kong too. And However, the answer I got was no. The Center of Food Safety said such toxic substances did not leak to Hong Kong. Can you confirm this fact that toxic food in Taiwan did not reach Hong Kong? Our colleagues, if our colleagues mentioned this to you previously, I wouldn't suspect, I wouldn't doubt. However, I can double check later and report to you. There were news reports in Taiwan earlier that toxic substances such as plasticizers have entered food products. I just want to ensure the products in Hong Kong are clean. The issue of food is very wide reaching, and it even involves economic hierarchy. As I mentioned before, frozen meats, we have nowhere to unlodge meat products. We are not just talking about food safety, it's about the entire industry. Now with the rampant inflation, the public has to turn to chilled meats, and it's a good choice in between fresh meats and frozen meats, and it's an issue of economic hierarchy. Is it a job of the CEDB? Should we ask them to take up part of the work? Thank you, Chairman. We can certainly reflect this to CEDB on the issue of chilled meat. Over the last year or two, we have been communicating with the trade. We've had meetings, and more so from FHB. Throughout, under the whole supply chain, we have to ensure food safety. If the FEHD sees any inappropriate distribution of food, of meat products, for example, in farm areas, they might carry out legislation if they find safety standards to be unsatisfactory. And I've also discussed with the trade that they have to work to ensure the safety of the supply chain in order to comply with the law. And as far as I know, they are also sourcing appropriate land for farming purposes. And if the administration is required to give advice to help them comply with the rules, we are more than happy to do so. We are talking about infrastructure, and they need to have measures in place to ensure that the food products are processed in clean venues. Dr. Ho Ting Kwang. Food safety is very important for the public, and I agree with the creation of this post. As we mentioned, however, would we have a situation where we have a lot of people at the top and not enough people at the bottom? And we need a team here and not just one individual. On food safety, what would be the hierarchy of the administration? Would you just be opening up senior positions? What would you do to ensure food safety? On the top-heavy structure, I don't think you need to be concerned. As I explained, apart from for the Deputy Secretary, he would be supported by the entire Center for Food Safety team. they have 600 staff, 400 professional posts, and 200 general posts. And with the support of such a professional team, we won't see a top-heavy structure. The Center for Food Safety has been in place for quite a while. Did the center have any directorate positions already? What's the reason for creating a new post this time? The Center of FS, the highest position is a D4 officer, and he's in charge for frontline operations. If there are incidents, he would give professional advice, and he can provide professional advice from a medical point of view. And now we are talking about a D3 position, which is more about the strategy level, at the policy level, and there is no overlap. The recommended D3 post was started in 2008, in 2009 rather. So we have an ongoing need now and into the future, and that's the reason we want to create this new post. Stephen Ho, as the chairman said, I'm very concerned about the issue of re-exporting meat products. We discussed with the trade to establish a product safety center, and this might be the job of the new deputy secretary. And DS1 is in charge of policy, and DS2 handles agricultural safety. If fertilizers, as long as fertilizers are concerned, would they be the job of DS1 or DS2? I'm concerned about an overlap in their duties. What would be the division of work? In response to this question by Stephen Ho, the problem of agricultural residue is the job of DS2. He's responsible for agricultural development, including fisheries, poultry management. In terms of agriculture or farming, we have different duties. The job of DS1 is to oversee Hong Kong's positioning in terms of agriculture and how it can bring new opportunities for the Hong Kong economy. Hong Kong is a very crowded city with limited land. How can we make the best use of our land lots to ensure maximum farming efficiency? And the policy matters are the responsibility of DS1. And these tasks are different from food safety in terms of nature. So I think it's appropriate for both deputy secretaries to take care of these duties.
Mr. Martin Liu, on enclosures 2, 7, and so on. Well, there's the DS1 and also an AO staff grade C. Now, when I look at duties and responsibilities, it seems that there's some duplication. For the D4, of course, he reports directly to the Permanent Secretary. For the staff grade B, he will report to the DS1. So perhaps it gives people an impression that there's duplication is a bloated structure. Can I ask, is there a subordination relationship between the two posts, DS1 and DS2? And where there's duplication of duties, is it really the case? Is there any internal division of work? If so, how is it done? Permanent Secretary, Mr. Liu, for for DS1 and DS2, there's no duplication of duties. They do not have a subordination relationship. Both of them are accountable to the Permanent Secretary. What about division of work? For example, columbarium, public cemetery policy, and so on, a hawker's policy, policy on management of public markets, and so on. For the D3 post, that's item 1 and 2 of his responsibilities that seem to overlap with responsibilities 1 and 2 of D4. For the, I think you're referring to the Principal Assistant Secretary. That's the staff grade C post. And then the Deputy Secretary is either D4 or D3 post. You're asking if there's any duplication. Well, that's understandable if that's the case. Because for the staff grade C, he reports to either D3 or D4, the Deputy Secretary, that is. So the PAS has to do his job, and then he may need to seek directives of the Deputy Secretary, or if he needs the involvement of a higher level, then he goes to the Deputy Secretary. Say for DS2, he's in charge of burial policy, columbarium niches, and so on. So and he's in that case, the PAS is responsible reports to DS1. You may think that there's duplication of the responsibilities, but actually the PAS is in the same team. He works on the same issue, but you can say that it's a different level of responsibilities. For DS2, or PAS rather, PAS a D2 post, for this level, maybe the PAS is responsible for collecting information or preparing a draft of the paper, and then he will submit his work to his supervising officer. That's the Deputy Secretary, which is at a higher level, and the DS will see whether there's consistency in the policy or in terms of the philosophy behind the policy or justifications. There's gaps. Are there any flaws, or how do the resources to deployed, and so on? So that requires a coordination at a high level, and that's the work of the DS. If you look at the items alone, it may seem that there is duplication, but it's about different level of responsibilities, really, and different level of involvement. Mr. Christopher Zhang. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's about the creation of a permanent post in the food branch under the Food and Health Bureau to strengthen work in food safety. That's good. But then at the same time, we see that DS will have to look after burial policy, columbarium, and so on, and that will take up a good part of his work. How come the permanent DS post has to take care of columbaria and so on? Is there a mismatch in job duties? How can he ensure that there's a proper food safety then? DS1, D4 post, that person's in charge of columbaria policy and overall environmental hygiene policy. For the proposed DS2 post, he is in charge of food safety and food supply chain. So his dedicated scope of duties has to do with food safety and food supply. He won't be in charge of environmental hygiene. Are you happy, Mr. Zhang? Next to Ms. Emily Lau. Well, the Permanent Secretary didn't answer some of the questions. It's not just about having an extra person. That is, in future, what would there be quicker test results, because the public are concerned? So can you tell the public sooner what's happening? And agriculture, as mentioned just now. We asked on other occasions whether there's an agricultural policy on the part of government. You want to develop the Northeast NT, you won't allow farming, and you say it has to do with you. It has to do with you, and so Mr. Paul Chen said it's got nothing to do with his bureau. But of course you need a proper policy before you can get anything done. 8, para 12G, it says that the OIS recommends that because of avian flu, there's need to have international veterinary certificate for eggs. Now you've gone through the panel, of course we support it, but the eggs from the mainland, we don't know how many eggs are from the mainland. Is there such an arrangement? That's the world. And then for H, or another point is about aquatic products. It said that you just talked to the AQSIQ on ways to strengthen monitoring and regulation. But how long would the discussion take? As you said, it took many years before we come up with the chicken farm scheme. For this, maybe we're going to wait another 10 years. A lot of aquatic products, of course, come from the mainland. So that means there won't be any regulation in the interim. Is that the case? On testing, quicker, please. Well, we'll try our best. Whenever there's a food incident now, the government laboratory would have its full staff on duty. They work through 8 weekends, they work around the clock. So that's why in the past when there are food incidents, test results are out very soon. They're already doing a great job. But of course, by procuring more equipment or by suitable deployment of staff, or we have more staff to do quicker and better tests, we won't hesitate to do so. That we can promise you, member. On agricultural policy, we're actively looking at that, definitely. Poultry eggs from the mainland. After there's an incident with poultry eggs on the mainland, there's already an administrative agreement. That is, there is already a certain level of assurance for eggs coming from the mainland. But of course, there are also poultry eggs from Thailand and other places, and we are now working on the regulatory regime. Aquatic products, yes, there are aquatic products from mainland, mostly is freshwater fish. If you're talking about live seafood or chilled seafood, it comes from all over the world. Here we see there could be room for strengthening regulation, but we need the support and coordination with various parties, so we have to promote that. Who's in charge of agricultural policy? DS1, the D4 post. That's the colleague taking care of agricultural policy. Well, I don't think it's decidable. Who's that? Mr. Wong Kok Fan. Well, please ask him to work quicker. As you know, Madam Chair, we've talked about it on many occasions. It's not the case that some farmers want to stay put, but there has to be a policy so they know there's some sort of arrangement, and then they decide whether they will accept the arrangement, and that will help to reduce conflicts. So please work out policy as soon as possible and report to the reference panel so we can have a discussion, because the situation is not desirable at the moment. Agriculture is taken as food. Of course, there has to be agriculture before we have food. That means you need to have eggs, you need to have chickens to have eggs, or vice versa. But animals considered food. All animals considered food. That's the problem. Well, we are small government, of course. Food is FDA, and for agriculture USDA. That should be distinguished clearly. Agriculture is the primary sector, is part of the economy. But anyway, I won't bother to say more. Okay, many members have asked questions on this item. If there are no other questions, I'll put the item to a vote. For those in favor of EC 2013 to 1410, raise your hands if you support the proposal. Those against, please raise your hands. I think there are more members in support of this proposal than those opposing it. So the proposal is endorsed. Thank you, Permanent Secretary. We now go on to item 2 of the agenda, EC 2013 to 1411, proposed creation of one permanent post of Administrative Officer Staff Grade C D2 in the Innovation and Technology Commission, designated as Secretary General Testing and Certification with effect from the 1st of April 2014 to provide sustained and dedicated support at the directorate level to assist the Hong Kong Council for Testing and Certification. The panel on commerce and economic development was consulted on the 19th of November 2013. Attending the meeting, we have Ms. Janet Wong, Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, Mr. Johan Wong, Deputy Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, and also Mr. Keeson Wong, Secretary General Testing and Certification of the Hong Kong Council for Testing and Certification. The chairman of the panel on commerce and economic development, Mr. Vincent Fang, is not a member of this subcommittee. He is unable to attend the meeting today, so I will briefly report the main deliberations of the panel to you. The panel supports in principle the proposed creation of the permanent post and turning it, it is now a supernumerary post. So from the 1st of April 2014, this could be made a permanent post. But then the panel has also come up with some suggestions. First, the panel asked the administration to seek a wider recognition of Hong Kong's testing and certification results on the mainland. 2, for textile testing and certification service, the government should strive to include it as part of the further liberalization measures under CEPA. 3, to step up promotion of the various support services for the testing and certification industry. 4, to consider an assistance scheme and provide incentives to organizations to adopt the ISO 27001 Security Management System Certification Service and other information and communications technology certification schemes. And 5, to step up cooperation with the Productivity Council and the Hong Kong Council for Testing and Certification to promote the development of software certification services for Hong Kong. 6 members would like to ask questions. Well, just now each member spent some 5 minutes, so this time I'll allow 5 minutes. Mr. Felix Chung, Mr. Yu Si-wing, Dr. Kenneth Leung, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, Ms. Emily Lau, and Mr. Poon Siu Ping. First, Mr. Felix Chung.
In the discussion papers, they mentioned developing certain industries, but the textile industry is not included. Hong Kong has a research and development center already. Why isn't textile included? We mentioned promotion efforts in China. Right now, we want to promote the idea of tested in Hong Kong and certified in Hong Kong. Can we enforce accreditation, mainland accreditation of Hong Kong's testing and certification services? First of all, even though the textile industry is not included, it doesn't mean we won't do anything on it about it. And actually, these industries make up a significant part of our testing and certification services. We have consulted the relevant trades, and for mature industries such as textile, they would not need further support. However, if we see any new demand in certification services, for example, trends in China, in Europe, can we do anything to meet the trend? For trades like Chinese medicine and construction, at that time they weren't very significant in our economy, and they were relatively new industries. On the other hand, we would promote certification services for newer industries. For example, clothing. We have maintained very close communications with the trade, and they would update us on their needs. On CEPA, after CEPA 7, we have expanded our scope of cooperation under the scheme. On CCC and value-added services for textile industry, we have been promoting the relevant efforts. Let me invite the Deputy Commissioner to supplement more. Since CEPA Annex 7 was in force, the market has been opened up for Hong Kong. For CEPA 9, we have tested a pilot scheme in Guangdong, and we have provided food and certification services for food and agricultural products. Right now, we are in talks with mainland authorities over CEPA 10, which was announced in September. We are discussing implementation details with mainland authorities at the moment, and hopefully CEPA 10 can be enforced by early 2014, and it can provide more business opportunities for businesses in certification and testing. Can you tell us the scope of products covered under CEPA 10? The Secretary General can give more information. CEPA 10 was tested in Guangdong, and this applies to all Hong Kong products and Hong Kong products which are processed in Guangdong. What do you mean by voluntary implementation? In mainland, we have compulsory certification and voluntary certification. If manufacturers voluntarily take their products to a certification center, this is called voluntary certification. Yu Si Wing. I agree with the creation of this post to enhance Hong Kong's reputation. Under point 15, 6 trades, specific trades will be covered. For the jewelry trade, as you know, we have a lot of mainland tourists in recent years. They come here to buy jewelry such as diamonds and jade. In paragraph 22, the HKCTC has sponsored in a very passive manner the Gemological Association of Hong Kong, or GAHK, to develop standard testing methods for jades. As you know, a lot of tourists buy emeralds or diamonds. They also buy jades, but not a lot. Businesses make a lot of commission, actually up to 50%, when they sell these jewelry to mainland tourists. I think this new officer should take care of the standards of certification and administration. My question is, would the administration consider expanding the scope of jewelry certification? And second, would administrative standards be enhanced? We mentioned compulsory certification in the mainland. can we have this officer accountable for compulsory certification in Hong Kong as well? Secretary General on jewelry testing. As I mentioned, we already have standard testing methods for diamonds. However, internationally, we have global certification standards in place for diamonds. Meanwhile, for jades, we have a market for jades, since there is no international institute to certify jades at the moment. However, the testing methods are still not mature, and that's the reason we have decided to sponsor the Gemological Association to develop a set of standard testing methods, and we would also promote the testing methods on certification, on compulsory certification. We want to go for a voluntary approach, and we would just provide guidelines, and we have no plans to promote compulsory certification at this stage. If we don't make this compulsory, if you just sponsor this association, I think this approach is very passive. Is there a middle point in between sponsorship and mandatory certification? And this gives tourists confidence for Hong Kong's jewelry products. Right now, even for Hong Kong people, some of us have a lot of doubts with the quality of the diamonds sold here. For example, the quality where they are certified. Are we going to do more on this? For each specific trade, we have a commission, a panel made up of experts. And various stakeholders are involved. And the ultimate aim is to safeguard Hong Kong's reputation and ensure consumer confidence. On the issue of compulsory or voluntary certification, it's easier to make it voluntary. If we make it mandatory, things might get complicated. If Mr. Yu thinks specific trades have a need for compulsory certification, we can perform more consultation, but we hope we have a consensus before any further discussions are made. Kenneth Leung. The government has promoted testing and certification services in Hong Kong in recent years. My question is, in the last few years, what percentage of these certification services, how many percent of GDP do these services consist? Can you elaborate on these services? Apart from promotion in mainland, do you promote these services in Asia or Southeast Asia? The third question is, for paragraph 7b, for the measures 1 to 6, what were the subjective standards when you drew up these measures? Did you perform any consultation? What are your standards? Thank you for the question. The direct revenue generated by testing and certification services do not consist a large percentage of GDP. In 2009, it was 8.6 billion. By 2011, it was 10.1 billion. The percentage has increased by 25%. Right now, we're using the whole year figure of 2011. The figure for 2012 is still under processing. We had a financial. We were still feeling the effects of a financial crisis at that time. So we are quite satisfied with the figure. When we promote our certification services, have we considered promoting them in China? We have collaborated with HKTDC, and most of the expos we are taking part in most of the expos organized by TDC. Our mission is to promote the services to China and to other places in Asia. And for the proposed measures, we would assess market needs. The entire process has been a very long road, and in 2009, when we were first established, we performed consultation with different trades to see if they have specific needs. Some traditional trades mentioned they already have a lot of testing and certification services. We might not need your services. For instance, Chinese medicine, we gathered industry professionals to discuss market needs and see if what kind of further services they need. I have a follow-up question. Can you give us some statistics? Can you give us figures on the economic contributions of the certification services in Hong Kong, China, and in Asia? Do you have such figures? Deputy Commissioner, thank you, Chairman, and the question. I just want to give a general overview, and Mr. Lee can tell us more on figures. The testing and certification trade, in 2011, the economic contribution is around 1.08 billion. It's not a big part in terms of total GDP. However, this trade is supporting the entire Hong Kong economy. For example, our exports, they have to comply with regulations overseas, and our testing and certification services are actually supporting different industries and facilitating the export of our goods and services. And on the breakdown of figures of how much economic contribution our certification services have in Hong Kong, China, and Asia, I'll turn to Mr. Lee.
I could give you the figure on the industry's contribution to the GDP of Hong Kong. We talk about $10.8 billion as just the turnover for the trade, but then we don't have breakdowns as to how many percentage for the local, mainland, or regional market. Well, Ms. Janet Wong, I'm sure other departments envy you. You really meet with any resistance or in seeking creation of posts here. Testing and certification is one of the advantage industry in Hong Kong. We have high expectation of it. Now there's going to be permanent post dedicated to this task. The DAB supports it. At the same time, we have expectations of the post. If Hong Kong could break into the testing and certification market on mainland, there will be huge potential. So when the post is created, it should not just serve the people of Hong Kong. The post should promote expansion of the industry into the mainland market. And then we could set a good standard for testing and certification on the mainland. And Hong Kong will then become truly a testing and certification authority or brand for both Hong Kong and mainland products. This will be another engine to drive the economic growth of Hong Kong. So any response, please, Commissioner? Mr. Wong, I fully agree with you, and I thank you for your support of our work. The brand name of Hong Kong Testing and Certification, I can tell you, is an established brand around the world. We learned from the industry that overseas buyers attach importance to testing and certification by Hong Kong. The mainland, of course, is an immense market. Hong Kong is strategically positioned at the gate of the mainland. So we serve a bridge between the world and the mainland. So we are doing it step by step to build a platform for testing and certification in Hong Kong. And then we could contribute even more to the economic and trade development on the mainland. So through CEPA, we will make sure that we promote such development. Are you happy, Mr. Wong? Next, Miss Emily Lau. I agree with Mr. Wong. Often we tell these commissioners is really lucky, and even she agrees she's lucky and other colleagues envy her. Well, yes, envying is one thing. On Thursday, the Commission has invited us to visit the Science Park to show our support. But in other panels, we've talked a lot about innovation and technology. There's a lot that we can do. Recently, we considered whether we should visit Israel. Commissioner, you've been to Israel. Well, I wouldn't say that the Commissioner is not able to do her job, and you have plenty of resources, but somehow we just can't get things done. And more and more are saying that our competitiveness is waning. Of course, it's not entirely the responsibility of the Commissioner, but we feel helpless. We give you so much support, we give you the money, give you everything, but still we can't turn things around. I hope this post will help. CEPA, we mentioned CEPA a lot, but we couldn't even go back to the mainland, so we don't know what it's about. And people wonder whether CEPA is only to benefit Hong Kong because it's not open up to others, and the mainland doesn't want to liberalize its market so soon, of course. Anyway, Commissioner, can you tell us what the overall development is? The LESCO gives you so much support. How come we are still in this stalemate? Thank you, Ms. Emily Lau, for your question. I think you're talking about innovation and technology, something much broader than testing and certification. I've explained on other occasions. In terms of innovation and technology, and in terms of their industrialization, I think it only happened around 2008 and thereafter. Before, there were mostly university research projects. It's only after 2008 we're giving more funding support. And after the financial tsunami, we decided we shouldn't rely too much on the financial services sector. And that's why the 6 advantage industries were proposed. And there's been drastic change to the work of our commission. We're now spending a lot more time on promotion of the industries. Now, so we haven't been doing it for a long time. And of course, there are constraints in our economic structure. Our economic structure is such that we're heavily reliant on services in the trades. We don't have national defense, we don't have production and manufacturing, and that will hold back development in innovation technology to a large degree. The government actually has invested quite a lot here. What I think is that we haven't done enough. There's one area that I'm not happy with, is about private investment. The figure remains low. Now, Ms. Emily Lau has talked to us about this for a long time. We agree we have to do more here. At the panel on commerce and industry, I've promised members that next year, on private investment in scientific research, we would like to step up a promotion and hopefully bring about improvement there. On CEPA, well, it benefits both the mainland Hong Kong. CEPA has allowed Hong Kong to have many edges, and we've achieved good economic results in the mainland market. But it's a matter of mutual respect when it comes to CEPA. We have to do things step by step. There's a synergy achieved, and that's really the guiding consideration. Competitiveness will follow up on that on other occasions, but CEPA is supposed to be mutually beneficial. If it's mutually beneficial, then the mainland should be more than happy to promote CEPA. How come they think we're the only party to benefit? They don't get to stand to gain from it. How come they think they're just giving us the advantage? Well, on the mainland there is also the testing and certification sector. Now, it's about mutual benefit, so that's why we can't be too aggressive, or we may affect the position of the other party. So it's about the discussion. The guiding consideration is that it must be mutually beneficial. Mr. Poon Siu Ping, I support the extension of this post. If we look at the main duties and responsibilities of the post, there's one point that is to promote recognition of the Hong Kong's testing and certification results in the mainland and overseas. Now the team, there are 8 posts, and this team's then all the 8 posts will be made permanent, and there will be 2 additional posts. Well, perhaps you are being very cautious in proposing 2 additional posts, that's all. But what is the work objectives of this team? Commissioner, I think in your commission there are about 189 posts. Will there be further additional posts? And could there be cross-deployment of the colleagues to take part in the various tasks? Deputy Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Member, for your question. We are here, of course, to seek endorsement for the proposed creation of a permanent post of AO Staff Grade C D2 post. Now, to support the work of the Secretary General, there is a team underneath him, of course. On the work of the Hong Kong Council for Testing and Certification, just now we talked about the specific trades, and we talked about promoting recognition of our assessment results overseas, and also on promoting further liberalization under CEPA on the mainland. Now, in terms of support staff, we have managed to secure the addition of 2 more posts within the government. We do take it very cautiously. So we are here, we're just talking about the permanent D2 post, and we have other supernumerary posts. And we have a team of supernumerary posts, and these posts have been changed to permanent posts already. And as mentioned, we are adding 2 more posts at the same time. Other colleagues of the Innovation and Technology Commission, would they also provide support? At the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner level, we also have to oversee the work of the Hong Kong Council for Testing and Certification. As for other colleagues, they already have a heavy workload, as some members mentioned. We have several research centers, and there is funding arrangement under the Innovation and Technology Fund. And then in the coming years, the Commissioner mentioned, we are considering new initiatives to promote private investment in scientific research and development. So we are considering useful measures that could promote private investment. So at the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner level of the Innovation and Technology Commission, we also oversee the portfolio of testing and certification, but the primary tasks are to be carried out by the Secretary General. That's to be created as a permanent post. Thank you.
Martin Liao. I have a simple question. CEPA refers to regions under collaboration under the WTO. And what regions are we actually talking about? As far as I know, CEPA refer to concessions offered by mainland China. Does China need to offer the same concessions to other areas? Thank you for the question. Our understanding is that under the WTO framework, these regional arrangements or cooperation are allowed. We can double check it later. For CEPA or ICFA in Taiwan, these are specific arrangements. We will consult some experts on WTO on whether these arrangements will be extended to other areas. Thank you. Second round of question from Chung Kwok-pan. As the Commissioner said, Hong Kong has an advantage in testing and certification. However, for CEPA Annex 10, the arrangements are still voluntary, and we don't have compulsory testing. So what is the barrier here? If China and the world agrees or supports Hong Kong's testing services, why don't we make it compulsory? Thank you for the question. I have 2 points to make. First, the legislation and requirements in Hong Kong and China are very different. As we mentioned in our discussions, apart from voluntary certification, a lot of trades are required to conduct compulsory certification, and we don't have such requirement here in Hong Kong. Second, as the Commissioner has said, one of our key discussion items under CEPA between ourselves and the mainland authorities is that we need to have a mutually beneficial relationship. Hong Kong has a traditional advantage in testing and certification. We are widely accepted internationally, and we're strong in terms of technology, and the mainland authorities are aware of this. in terms of global market demands, Hong Kong trade, such as the toys industry, the EU and the United States have stepped up safety standards for toys recently. As you know, a lot of toys produced in China are for exports. Although Hong Kong doesn't have a large toys industry, but we have a lot of business opportunities in China. In response to market needs such as the toy industry, our testing and certification businesses have a lot of opportunities for growth. We have consulted the testing and certification trade on what they have to say on their outlook for the future, for our future development. We are studying. We are trying to see if the testing and certification trade has a wish list, which we can submit to the mainland authorities when we undergo negotiations or discussions with them. The principle here is mutual benefits, and we seek further liberalization in the CEPA. I have a follow-up question. The Deputy Commissioner said most of the certification work is done in Hong Kong instead of China. However, if we look to the China market, if Hong Kong certification services are globally recognized, will you ask the mainland authorities why you set barriers or restrictions for our services if our standards are already internationally recognized? We will continue to negotiate with mainland authorities. However, we can't strike an agreement easily if we have mutual benefits. Sometimes we have to consider the recognition of our measures in China. Nevertheless, I thank you for the comments. We would continue our efforts. If we have no other questions, let's vote. If you are in favor, please raise your hands. No objections. I think the voting is passed by all members. Thank you for the officials. Next item, the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau. The proposed creation of one permanent post of AO Staff Grade C D2 in CMAB with effect from 1st of April 2014 to head a new Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in Wuhan. And the grade is at the levels D2, and we have consulted the electrical panel. Since the chair of CIP, Vincent Fang, is not a member of our panel, so I will relay his key discussion points. Our members recommend the renaming of the trade office and to reflect its role in cultural cooperation and collaboration. Since the head of ETO would be renewed every few years, some of our members are concerned how we can maintain, how the ETO can maintain continuity and establish a long-term relationship with mainland authorities. And the members are also concerned with the venue of the trade office. And in response to the request of some members, the administration has provided additional information to explain the logic of situating the office in Wuhan. Our officials today, Mr. Daniel Chang, Deputy Secretary for CMB, Ms. Noel Chang, Principal Assistant Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs. We have questions from 4 members: Kwok Ka-ki, Emily Lau, Yu Si Wing, and Chong Kwa Pan. 5 minutes each, please. Mr. Kwok. CY mentioned that internal networking is one of the key work for this year. When we look at the situation at CMAB in 2011, they have 126 senior staff and 2 plus 2, and now there are about 160. Their key duties are business communications. As you know, the HKTDC spends almost 2.5 billion every year. We should be prudent on public money. What I don't understand is that since the TDC has a lot of money and arranges a lot of conventions and expos, and they have over 40 years of experience, and now the administration is ignoring what they have done, and they're establishing another commission, another office. Is this actually, do we have a real need, or is it just a political measure by CY to tell the mainland government that we are doing something? For these key roles, why shouldn't these duties be performed by other bodies funded by public money? Our role is actually different from HKTDC, and our duties are clearly defined. What's the main difference? The ETO has other duties, for example, promoting Hong Kong, supporting Hong Kong people and enterprises, encouraging investment, etc. The mainland ETO serve to facilitate communication between governments. As a non-official body, the HKTDC cannot replace our work. The mainland offices of HKTDC and HKETO have close collaboration. However, our jobs don't overlap, but instead we help each other. This is where the question came. Are we saying that the TDC had not performed its function as the link between governments? When I read their annual reports, they are using their existing platforms to communicate with mainland governments. Is this something no one has done before? Why does the CMAB have to take up this work? As you know, the CMAB is doing very bad in terms of constitutional affairs, as you may know. And now they're doing some superficial work. Our scope of work include constitutional matters as well as mainland affairs. The ETO and TDC are in charge of different duties. The TDC also does some communication work with the government, but the ETO has its role in serving as a link between governments. Let me cite an example. In terms of mainland regulations and policies, if trades want to reflect their views on these issues, very often they would turn to us to work with the mainland governments, and this has proved to be effective. Emily Lau. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm looking at my screen. It should be UC Wing. Mainland Hong Kong ties are getting more and more frequent. I support creating an office in Wuhan. However, in terms of its function, it's still an economic and trade office. Apart from trade links, Hong Kong has a lot of other links with China too. For example, tourism, cultural exchange, etc. In case of accidents in China, Hong Kong people would need help. Most of the functions only focus on economic and trade. Can we enhance the function of the ETOs? For example, can they help handle emergency situations for Hong Kong people in China? In terms of function, we should use this chance to enhance its function. This office shouldn't just handle economic and trade affairs. In terms of promoting Hong Kong, I know the Hong Kong Tourism Board has offices in different cities in China. The HKTB also runs on public money, and it doesn't have an office in central China, in the 5 provinces in central China. Can we launch a pilot scheme and work with HKTB and collaborate with each other in terms of promotion so that resources can be better allocated? If the ETO is doing well, there is no reason for HKTB to launch offices in those 5 provinces. Can you justify your spending?
Deputy Secretary, in the policy address 2013, it's been announced that we'll strengthen the functions of ETOs. Now, in the past we focused more on economic activities. Now we've expanded the functions of these ETOs in a number of areas. Existing and strengthening support for Hong Kong businesses and Hong Kong residents. We have strengthened our work in this area. I can give you some examples. On promoting the launch of new policies on the mainland and analysis of these policies. We've strengthened work there to help Hong Kong people better grasp the policies. For example, the new value-added taxes, changes in labor laws, and so on. We have close liaison with chambers of commerce on supporting Hong Kong residents, the 4 ETOs, the 4 offices. Well, actually, in Guangdong, we have published leaflets on living on the mainland, and for the other 3 offices, we're going to do something similar. We're going to publish leaflets on tips for living where they are, so they are able to get information. Well, of course, these days we also have to strengthen web information. The Beijing office actually redesigned its web page altogether. For Hong Kong residents and Hong Kong businesses, they were able to find the latest development on the web page, and it will also ensure there's better liaison. Promotion efforts. Well, it's not just the TDC. The Tourism Commission's also got offices on the mainland. We've now strengthened. The Tourism Board also has offices on the mainland. We have actually strengthened liaison with all these offices. Sometimes we do joint promotion. Sometimes there's coordination in promotion. Or, for example, you do promotion in Province A, then we'll do it in Province B, and so on. And of course, the TDC focuses on trade promotion. For our ETOs, we have a much wider range of tasks. And now we're trying to promote Hong Kong to the mainland. It also covers cultural issues, sports issues, and so on. So we have a promotion in all realms of activities. Ms. Emily Lau. I agree with Mr. Yu Si-wing. If Hong Kong residents need to seek assistance, there are many ways to go about it. But of course, if we are to provide support at all levels, we may need big offices. Apart from requests for assistance on trade issues, we also receive requests for assistance on other issues. Now, what about people doing business on the mainland? Maybe they're deceived or they become entangled in disputes, court cases, they are locked up, and so on. I think over the years you must have received many requests for assistance in such cases. In many cases, probably you're able to help them. Of course, there are also cases that you can't help. I've got still some such cases. How come there's just A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H? What about I? You should add I. You should help them. Under F, supporting Hong Kong residents and enterprises, we say here, we try to provide information as soon as possible and to provide assistance for Hong Kong businesses or Hong Kong residents who require assistance. Of course, members are very concerned whether they're able to give assistance. We attach great importance to that as well. Our ETOs are stepping up our efforts in this area. I'm talking about something very concrete. Hong Kong residents are caught in a court case, they are arrested, they are locked up, they are beaten up, and then they want to make appeals. How many such requests for assistance have you received? It's not about providing information assistance, because you can't read it from here, from paragraph F. Why don't you have another paragraph? Why don't you make that another function of the ETOs? Deputy Secretary, there is a notification mechanism for Hong Kong residents arrested. This mechanism, so how do you do the work? Please, can you explain? In the past year, our office has received about 300 odd requests on matters in relation to immigration issues and personal safety. And there are another 137 requests for assistance on other matters. That's for a year. And as the chairperson mentioned, we have mechanisms to keep and liaison with the mainland authorities and to exchange information. For example, arrested Hong Kong residents, we have information on that. And for support for Hong Kong enterprises, we do several things. One, we provide legal advice or counseling. That's especially under the GD, the Guangdong ETO. And the service doesn't just apply to Guangdong, applies to the entire country. And referral service is also another aspect of our work. So we make sure we do proper referrals at the first instance, and in the light of request by those seeking assistance, because we have one country to system, so we try to do a proper job in referrals. And maybe some want to engage lawyers. We have a list of lawyers. Of course, we can't recommend any lawyers, but we have a list for reference by Hong Kong residents. So these are the tasks we do. There are many different mainland departments, of course. In some cases, it may have to do with Ministry of Commerce. It may have to do with the Hong Kong Macau Affairs Office, and so on. So we have a network of communication with various mainland authorities. Hopefully, then we could be more effective in referrals. In that case, spell it out here. F. It covers so much. You are able to say so much under F. So why don't you spell it out? So, Madam Chair, they should spell it out. Because you're actually doing it. If you don't do it, of course, you can't put it down. But if you've done it, why don't you put it down? When you go to FC, could you give more details, please? Yes, when we submit the paper to FC, we will say more here. Yes, give paragraph 2 on the background. What sort of assistance have you given? How many requests for assistance do you get in a year? And so on. Spell it out, please. Mr. Felix Chung. On giving support to Hong Kong enterprises, last year I asked the government, in the election manifesto of the chief executive, he said that he would help Hong Kong enterprises to promote their products on the mainland as specific sports. In Wuhan, the government said that it's going to work with some trade association there, but so far nothing more is heard of that. Is it because you've forgotten all about it? Or are you going to wait till the Wuhan ETO is in operation before you do it? Deputy Secretary. Thank you, Madam Chair. As far as I understand it, the relevant trade association is still in discussion with us. With the Hubei provincial government and the Wuhan municipal government, we've been in liaison on this issue. The SARG, in particular the Shanghai ETO, is following the progress, but discussion is still ongoing. I don't think it's not a question of whether we have to wait till a particular ETO be set up. The SAR government supports the promotion of Hong Kong products on the mainland by by trade associations or any other bodies. In the election manifesto, the CE has said it will offer help. So I would expect the SLG to take the initiative. You shouldn't just leave it to the trade associations to do the work. So now you're passing the buck to the trade associations. You let them go into negotiations. If it doesn't work, then you'll see what to do next. So since this is a commitment on the part of the government, would you not be more proactive? Deputy Secretary, would you not take the initiative? Perhaps I will pass on the message to the relevant colleagues or relevant policy bureau. And from what I understand, Madam Chair, between governments, in principle, we support. If we support a development, actually we've done it. We've expressed support for the development. But when it comes to implementation, after all, it is a matter for the trade association in question. So we'll have to leave it to the trade association to negotiate the details with their counterparts. It may not be appropriate for the government to get involved. If we just rely trade associations to do it, I don't know how long we have to wait. But as the Deputy Secretary General mentioned, the Trade Development Council is a quasi-official body involved in exhibitions and so on. So should you not ask the TDC to do it rather than ask the trade associations to do it? Deputy Secretary, I will pass on this message. Any other questions, please? So then we'll have to wait for a response from the Deputy Secretary. Next, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. Thank you, Madam Chair. There's increasing economic integration between Hong Kong and the mainland. Mainland is a vast country. So each ETO has to look after several provinces. For example, the proposed Wuhan ETO, it will have to look after 5 provinces. Hubei, Hunan, Henan, Hexi, and Jiangxi, and Shanxi, and so on. And now we had the Beijing office, we had the Shanghai, Guangdong ETOs, they are along the coast. But of course, Hong Kong investment is now moving towards the west and the central part of China. So in the light of development, there's a proposal to create the Wuhan ETO. I think is necessary. It's a pity that Dr. Kwokaki is not here. I find it odd that Dr. Kwokaki has to bring CY Leung in every time. I don't know what this Wuhan ETO has to do with CY Leung. This is a strong request of the business sector in Hong Kong for this ETO. And he also mentioned TDC. The role of ETC is entirely different than the role of a government economic and trade office. Sometimes at the policy level there is a need for negotiations at the government level, and that's a matter for the government. As for TDC, it's just implementation bodies to help us to resolve matters. It's like the Hospital Authority and the Food and Health Bureau. Well, Dr. Kwok is not here, but maybe we can ask him, is it the case that because we have the Hospital Authority, then we could just do away with the Food and Health Bureau? I really don't know what he has in mind. Anyway, coming to the Guangdong ETO, there are Immigration Department officers there, but for other ETOs, there are not Immigration Department officers. For the other ETOs, which you consider a similar setup as for the GD ETO, that is, we have immigration staff stationed at the other ETOs. They could therefore help Hong Kong residents who come across problems on the mainland. Now, if we have to station immigration officials in the other ETOs, is a matter entirely for the Hong Kong SRG, or do we need the consent of the Central People's Government before we could deploy immigration officials to other ETOs?
Thank you, Chairman. Before 2013, only the Guangdong ETO has an immigration affairs panel. From 2012 to 2013, around October this year, we established an immigration affairs team in the Chengdu office. So now we have three teams in total. For the Wuhan ETO, we have no plans for an immigration affairs team yet. However, we will assess the needs later on. You didn't answer the question. If we deploy an immigration affairs team, is it something which can be deployed by the SAR government or mainland? The immigration team is actually part of the Beijing office. Usually, it's approved by the National Congress, but in this case, we don't have to worry about that. I agree with Mr. Yu's comments. I'm concerned about the scope and name of the office. Going forward, can we learn from Taiwan and include the elements of cultural exchange in the name? Right now, Hong Kong has a China liaison office. If we have an office in Wuhan, should we call it a Hong Kong liaison office in Wuhan? We can consider this on a holistic basis, and this is something we can think about in future. I have two questions. With the new Wuhan ETO, we would have 5 offices in the mainland. Is there any plans for a 6th office? Will Wuhan be the last one, or are there going to be any further offices? Right now, we want to create a D2, Administrative Officer, Subgrade C. Apart from the mainland offices, we have offices in other cities, such as Brussels. Would the staff at those offices be of the same grade? Deputy Secretary, in terms of deployment, after the Wuhan office is established, we would have offices in different parts of China, all over China. Overall speaking, we would it's pretty complete. We have 3 liaison offices in China too. As mentioned earlier this year, we would consider establishing more offices, more liaison offices in China. And we would be opening up more liaison offices and not just ETOs. In terms of the staff grade in other offices, all I can say is they are similar. The levels could be D2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the duties of the office. But they are similar to this to the level offered for the Wuhan officer, the D2 officer. Can you tell us more about the Brussels office? What grade are the what grade is the head of the Brussels office is? We were talking about the head of the Brussels office. Should be D4 to D6, right? Yes. For ETOs in overseas countries, those located at capital cities or at cities which or at the EU offices, the grades are usually higher. Second question from Mr. Yu. To follow up on the naming issue, the Wuhan ETO reports to CMAB. And by mainland affairs, we don't just refer to business or trade, but I think the tendency here is to focus on trade, since I think the CMAB should consider overall mainland affairs. For example, communication between Hong Kong residents and China. Before the renaming, as Emily Lau said, we should list more points under the scope of responsibility. We should expand the scope of responsibility because times are changing and we have to update our scope accordingly. I think we should introduce more responsibilities beginning with the Wuhan office. For example, in case of traffic accidents, the ETO can help with coordination work. For example, if we have an accident in Guangdong province, the Guangdong ETO can help. I think this is something we are doing already, and so I don't understand why you don't write this down under your scope of work. Are you trying to dodge your responsibility? I think the offices should serve more functions. I think the ETOs are pretty much full service, right? You have to handle everything. As you mentioned, the ETOs would not dodge from their responsibility. For the case of accident, traffic accidents or personal accidents, the work used to be taken up by the immigration team of the Beijing office. Depending on the location of the incidents, they would be taken up by the Guangdong or Beijing office. This year we introduced an immigration team in the Chengdu office. So basically we have the whole of China covered. Right now the Wuhan office does not have an immigration team. Chairman, so he said there's no imminent need and they would consider it in the future. So what happens if there are any accidents in the 5 provinces in central China? They would be handled by either the Guangdong or Chengdu office, depending on the geographical proximity. The contacts of the office, etc. We would consider a few factors. A quick question. According to the experience of the mainland offices, do we not set up more immigration teams because of the lack of talent? Can you deploy staff from the immigration department in this case? Let's vote. If you're in favor for item EC bracket 201314 number 12, please raise your hands. Everyone agrees? So I announce passing of this proposal. Do we need to carry out separate voting for these 3 items? I recommend I recommend these points be written down in the documents. Yeah, if the document is well written, we would not need a separate voting session. You understand this point, right? Yes.